Coach McGuyre, thank you so much for coming on the Christian Coach podcast. It's an honor to have you here. What does it mean to you to be a Christian coach?
First of all, thank you for having me. And, I think just to be a Christian in general, not just a Christian coach, man, I'm just so thankful for what God's done for me in my life. He's my strength. He's my source of encouragement, but most importantly, he's my salvation. And just, I was speaking to an athlete just the other day, who's still skeptical, and it brought back to me all of his faithfulness and his sovereignty in my life, but mostly what he's empowered so many people to overcome. And, I was talking to an athlete. I think being a Christian coach means we just have an opportunity to share his story. Best example of love is just reflecting the character of Christ towards others. And I've been so fortunate that at a very early age, I knew I wanted to coach, and I had coaches that really exemplified that in a way that kind of transformed my thinking and had me trying to figure out how I can combine the two. And really, it's just to be a Christian coach, to me means to submit to him and let him be the head coach. So whether I've been an assistant coach or a head coach, I've tried to make him the head coach. Yeah. I know when I try, I fail. When I trust, he succeeds. So the battle is to remain in him, which isn't always easy with the stresses and pressures and things, but to remain in him and let him reign in me. And sometimes I'm able to do that. Sometimes I falter and need to come back to him in forgiveness and let him guide me again.
Yeah. That's a great quote. When I try, I failed. When I trust, I succeed. That's I'll be using that one. I'll be using that one.
Personal motto for sure.
You mentioned that from a very early age, you knew you wanted to coach. That's usually not the dream of a young kid. I wanted to be a professional soccer player first, and then tennis player. How old were you when you decided to coach, and why do you think you made that decision?
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to play for the Lakers. I grew up in Southern California, and, in Romans 5, it just talks about how suffering produces perseverance, character, and character, hope. And I think that's just kind of God's game plan for life. And Adam and Eve had everything going so well, and caused suffering. But Jesus came, persevered, character, and that hope is one that's not a wishy-washy. Man, I hope I win a national championship. It's a foregone conclusion that God is victorious. And so for me, my 8th grade year was a great time. I was quarterback on the flag football team. I was point guard on the basketball team. And, but unfortunately I lost both grandparents. My best friend died in a car accident that year. I think it went to like 11 funerals just in this like short amount of time. And, my coach at the time, Bob Winger, who, small junior high school was kind of coached everything. So he was both basketball, football coach. He also lost his father at that time, but, I was playing all sports. And so that summer I was on an all-star soccer team, and we were going to go play in Hawaii. And I was so excited, and my parents decided to go last minute. I was really bummed. Like, it was going to be this first trip alone with the guys and everything. And, eventually they came, and I'm super glad that they did. I ended up breaking my leg like 3 different places, like day 2 of this 10-day trip out there. And so I'm like stuck on the beach with this giant plaster cast because they're going to wait till I got back to the United States to set it and everything, try not to get sand in it and sunburn and everything. And everyone's having fun, parasailing, snorkeling, doing all things you can do in Hawaii. And man, that just knocked me on my back. And so it also meant I started high school, going from a junior high to a new high school on crutches. I had my grandmother pass away. I had her little rascal scooter. I thought that was kind of cool to drive around, not have crutches at times. But I went from like starting quarterback and point guard to the gimp. I had issues with my Achilles and just couldn't go out for sports. And but that coach let me come back to the junior high, and as a 9th grader, I was the offensive coordinator for our football team, and man, I just really loved it. And so from then on, from all of, 4 years of high school, I was coaching junior high. And as soon as I got into college, I was coaching high school, and it just seemed to, doors kept opening up more and more from there. And yeah, I think Bob Winger, that junior high coach, it was probably the first coach I had where all coaches seem to lose their temper. That seemed to go with it. But he would actually ask for forgiveness from the athletes, even the officials sometimes when he crossed the line. And he had a temper, but his humility in that was just something special, and kind of set the tone as God is the head coach. So
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that freshman year of high school, the high school decided to drop tennis. So I figured I was gonna, tennis in the spring, make tennis my sport. I'd done juniors tennis. Again, I was just a young athlete, fast, loved doing it. And they're like 50-year history. It's like 25 years of tennis. 1 year they didn't have it, and then the next 25 they end up having it. So I figured I'd go out for volleyball to kind of stay in shape for the other sports. And again, loved the sport and had great coaches and mentors in that. Barb and Dave Herron are ones I still talk to today. And again, I think knowing coaching is what I want to do. I was that kid always asking questions, trying to scoot closest to the coaches on the bench, when I wasn't a starter, and hear what they're saying and try and oversee and just, love the strategy of it all.
Yeah, that's great. You're not the first coach I've spoken to recently that became a coach after suffering injury early on in their, high school or college. I think I look at probably the better coaches out there professionally, even in college. They weren't, necessarily the best players. They were the ones who studied the game and had to really learn, and then due to injury, just sat on the bench and listened to the coach and paid attention to what they were doing. It's I think it's valuable that time, and I think a lot of players complain to being on the bench, but it's a great learning, arena is on the bench. Just pay attention,
Absolutely. Lot of exponential growth can happen there.
Yeah.
And so many athletes, here at Baylor, we in 19, we had a good season in the Final Four, but we had a girl, Shelly Stafford, that got to experience that extra year because an injury took another year away, but seemed to be that much more, powerful just having to sit and watch that year. And I've seen it so true, as you mentioned, so many student athletes.
Yeah. You mentioned a little bit about mentors and having your 8th grade coach. And then as you took up volleyball, you got some mentors there. How important is it for us coaches to still have that kind of relationship with other coaches who have done it for longer? And how important is it for us to be willing to help the younger coaches as well?
Yeah, no, I think it's huge. My dad, who's passed away recently, just taught me early on, like we want to have mentors in our lives, like someone who's walked before and someone who's willing to invest in others. Really, when God talks about being a blessing in other people's lives, I can't be a blessing to everybody, but who am I willing to invest in their future and walk side by side for them? But yeah, to have a mentor in our life, to have a close companion like Jonathan was to David or David to Jonathan, and then also be mentoring others, kind of be in those 3 phases. So that's a challenge. I work with my own student athletes, and man, I've had some great mentors. I would say early on, they didn't know they were the mentors because I'm just sitting there and listening. And then, a pastor friend of mine who still mentors me now he's really good because he's quick to let me know when I'm drifting, or, we talked earlier about, I try, I fail, I trust, he succeeds. And he's the one that asks, well, are you trying, Ryan, or are you trusting? And that brings me back to a good place. Then when it comes to recruiting, God's still the head recruiting coordinator. And I think sometimes he brings us athletes that, need some good influence where we can impact them. Sometimes he brings athletes that are there to probably challenge us and make us grow. And, normally it's kind of a combination of both. Yeah. And I get excited when I see them go on to be coaches and doing different things. We get to continue those conversations. And again, it's normally because, they love the principles, and they also love just seeing how God changed their own life. And it's, man, we receive his love. We want to be able to give it back, however we can. And the sports context is a great place to do it.
Very true. Very true. You played college at Biola?
Biola, yep.
And then you ended up coaching there. How was that transition from player to coach at your alma mater?
Oh man, it was it was unique. It was just a couple years before. I just have one brother. I thought girls had cooties up through college pretty much for a while, and so I had an AD when I was coaching high school who asked me to give up the football to coach like JV girls volleyball, and I was like, man, I honestly was upset. Like, I'm going from football to like JV. I had no idea what I was doing. I made a bazillion mistakes. I'm encouraging with enthusiasm, and that they would cry because of that. And I had no idea. God was paving the way. And there's a lot of funny stories just in that first year doing it. But no, I was my senior year of college at Biola, did assist with the women's volleyball team. Robin Davis, great coach at the time. So here's another place I can learn and mentor. Left for a year, do my GA NC State. And my wife's sister probably prayed me back into to that job. I said no to Biola because, I was D1. I wanted to kind of do that. But there was a time at that time, like, man, I'm not sure if I could coach Division I and successfully have a family, just knowing how I'm wired. So I did end up taking the job to come back to California. It was great. I was about 2 months older than the oldest player at the time. And that was my sister-in-law. And yeah. And future sister-in-law at the time, at then I was like, man, super walls. I've never been a touchy-feely guy and anything there. Her sister was actually younger. I'm only 14 months older than her, but Sarah at Biola had redshirted, so they're both the same class. And so Jen, my wife, had kind of come to the open gyms just to train. And then after Sarah graduated and everything, and she graduated, we started communicating while I was still coaching at Biola. But yeah, I remember the tinglies, that first national anthem going off and standing like, man, I'm 22, I'm a head coach, and I have no idea what I'm doing. How long is it going to take for people to figure out? I still don't feel I know what I'm doing, and but I'm going to do my best and go from there.
Yeah. How did you get over that, we'll say maybe an imposter syndrome of like, hey, how long until they figure out that I don't know anything? From personal experience, I just completed an Ironman 70.3 race.
Awesome.
And that was the first moment in my life where I went to check in, and I'm looking at people's bodies and their bikes. And I'm like, I do not belong here.
Out of my
league. This is truly a place that I do not belong.
No, that imposter syndrome, I think kind of still rings true there a little bit. I feel like, man, there should be this like 10 years of coaching where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, and people are going to like figure it out, and you just work hard. And there's supposed to be this 10 years of like this golden age where you know what you're doing, you're really successful. And then you enter the like, man, am I too old and I can't relate to these athletes anymore? Am I out of touch? I feel that middle thing just gets skipped. I went from like, man, are people figuring out that I don't know what I'm doing, to like, what is TikTok and why it like it's getting hard. Today I get to start calling, the 2023 and just to relate is it's still out of my league and out of my world, but there are some things, some timeless principles that ring true. But I would say when I was an assistant at Florida State, so, I left Biola, I coached 10 years at Cal Baptist, loved it. Championships, men's, women's side. I took the job because I was getting married, and it paid a real salary. I love, I'm an alumni. I love it. Like, I have a dream of starting a men's team there someday, but I figured if I'm starting a family, I need to, I was having to still teach on the side when coaching college at Biola high school. But when I was a assistant, and that was kind of a scary move from head coach for like 13 years to an assistant in Maryland and then assistant at Florida State. But, at Florida State, I got to run every practice, every drill, great mentor, head coach. And, he'd sometimes say, hey, let's focus on these things. And I had so much freedom. We opened up at Nebraska storied volleyball program on the road there that, they're regulars in the Final Four. And we were able to get that win. It was like their first loss at home in a non-conference game in like a decade or second one in 3 decades. And I do remember that just being a affirming moment for me personally, like, okay, maybe I have what it takes to be successful at this level. And again, that success, only talking about the wins and losses, I would say through the journey at CBU, success was kind of redefined. We had this miserable, everyone hurt, losing season, 1 win and 19 losses in conference. I'm going to get fired. My kid's about to be born. What's going to happen? And, that really forced me to shift gears. That was a season of suffering that I do feel we persevered. We suffered well. We're always going to suffer. Like, suffering comes and finds us, whether we create it ourselves or it just comes. But we suffered well. We persevered and just built character with, this nucleus of like 4 girls that were really healthy by the time the season was over, and then people got healthy, and then it just changed what you focus in on. And then so when success came next year, God did a miracle. We won a national championship. We really just tried to stay focused on what was important, and that's honoring Him and glorifying Him, and again letting Him lead. And the story that He's going to paint for us in our future is always better than anything we can imagine and come up with our own. And better to be in a season where there's losses and adversity, but that joy and peace that comes from battling and doing His will is so much better than achieve. And again, this is all stuff I've been very, very guilty of. And then indulge. Oh, I achieved success. Now I can indulge in more money and more fun, more toys, more entertainment or whatever it is, rather than, again, go back to seeking Him daily and see what the battle is. But the joy that comes from that is tremendous. And
I
want to do.
So you went, I'm a little speechless because you went from one win to a national championship in 12 months.
It was, we were 9-23 overall, but 1-19 in conference in 2004. And that really, it was a miracle. And God is not a good luck charm. I really, I hesitate to share this, but I think sometimes we limit Him on what He can do. That's what the pastors were preaching on, and it just seemed this recurring theme. And so, like I said, that was fall of 2003. And then in the spring, I had a great men's team. We're really physical, really athletic. I'm like, man, we just got to do good enough to keep my job. I'm already hearing the rumblings from administration. And that just brought me to my knees. And there was a personal time where I'm just daily on my knees, specific in what I'm asking for. I think, when we witness a miracle in our lives, it really changes how we pray. I would say there's probably some immaturity even in how I was praying back then, but knowing God still answered some of those prayers was pretty spectacular and kind of shifts and changes. And I hope my prayer life is even different than that then. But my wife was pregnant, and our men's team was good. I had 2 guys from Africa that could just hit the snot out of the ball. I had a 7-foot Polish guy. I had a 6'11" opposite gentleman from NC State. The one year I was kind of coaching men's club out there with the women that I was trying to mentor also, that ended up doing national team and playing pro. So we were big, 7 foot, 6'11", physical. And it was pretty exciting. We're starting to get these wins over, let's see, that year, like USC and Hawaii and Stanford. And the nationals were coming up, and April 18th was the championship day. And that just happened to be my wife's due date for our firstborn son. And I've always said God, family, career, that's the priority. That's the order. And I do feel I was being tested. So,
they'll test your priorities.
Oh, he did. But so the week of nationals, he asked, we went to the doctor and we're like, hey, firstborn, like they never come on the due date, right? They're always like day early or days late or something. And he's like, no, first one, it looks like it might go a little bit longer. So the doctor kind of thumbs up to go to nationals, which is in Wichita, Kansas. I'm in California, Southern California. So do that, we get out there, we practice Wednesday, we win Thursday, we win Friday. And sure enough, wife calls 3:30 a.m. The hotel room, right? Because this is like barely cell phone times. And I think I saw a flip one, but it's off night. And hotel rings, and she's like, hey, I'm having contractions. They're 5 minutes. I'm heading to the hospital. So this is 3:30. So I wake up, grab my, I have to wake up our SID because I didn't have to travel with a laptop back then. And hey, write a letter to the team. And then woke up our captain. His name was Randy.
He must have been really happy waking up.
He was. Randy was. He was really, you could call him Rudy. If you know from the movie, he was a 25-year-old electrician. He literally cried when I told him he made the team. It was just always been his dream to play college volleyball. He is all of 5 foot. I don't know if he listens to this, he'll be mad if I'm off, but like 5'9", and we teased him because of his cankles and that would just kind of sprain, and didn't play very much, but because of his maturity, because that Rudy, that character, he'd run through walls. Like he was the guy that'd stand on the other side of net and then just let all these guys crush him and just stand there and just get pummeled with balls, to like make sure they're hitting hard enough that they're undiggable. And so woke him up and gave him the game plan and said, you're in charge. Had no assistance at the time. The AD had traveled just in case. And then I had a resident director that was played with me at Biola on the men's club team and knew volleyball enough because we'd played together that it kind of stood in as well to fill out the lineup sheet, but he hadn't practiced or gone to matches with us. And Randy was in charge. So I went to the airport to try and find the closest, the first flight back to California. No smartphone. So I just go to your kiosk, when's your first flight to California, run to the next one. All right, you guys 6 a.m., 5:45. I'm trying to run back and forth to do it. I can't just pull it up. And long story short, ended up making it back to California. Jen's pushing pretty hard, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on in the championship match. Oh, we won the first set. We lost the second set. We won the third, and Randy's giving me updates. Hold on. He did sub himself in maybe a little bit more than I may have to go in and serve. But no, again, he is a great friend. Talk to him to this day, and I know we'll get to prayer requests, but he's out helping my mom fix stuff in Southern California. Again, no longer an electrician, but he can still put up fans faster than anybody. And first national championship and firstborn son kind of all happened at the same time. What a blessed weekend. And then if you fast forward into the fall of 2004, our women's team that was just had that tough persevering season the year before somehow ended up winning a national championship. That season, that year, that almost brings me back to tears every time to see that. It's just
that is an incredible story.
Yeah,
thank you for sharing.
God's faithfulness in that, and again, it has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
And so just thankful I got to be part of that ride and just sharing about who he is and what he can do.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That's incredible. Coach, we're I don't want to take too much time more. So I'm going to ask, how can we be praying for you?
My mom, California, just been diagnosed with inoperable pancreatic cancer. So, I was out there, my wife and kids are out there spending some time. One of the things I'm most grateful for is my childhood. As we coach more and more athletes, we realize just how important that upbringing is. When there's lack of good parenting, it creates a lot of challenges that we do have to help overcome. And so I'll see her in heaven. We're at peace. It's a great relationship. So she's in and out of ICU, where we're just kind of in those times. So, just comfort, encouragement for her in this time would be great. And then as we kind of navigate those, assisted living decisions and just those end of the days. She was a teacher forever, so I see coaching as teaching. John Wooden, as you read through all the stuff, like coaches are teachers, and so a lot of what I do is come from her as well.
Yeah. All right, let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this conversation with Coach McGuyre. We like to lift up his mom, Father, that you will put your healing hand on her, that you give her comfort, Lord, that you just be with the family as they navigate these next steps here, Father. I pray that the doctors who are in charge of her will have great clarity of mind to know what the next treatments are. Lord, that you be in the center of the situation, Father, that the whole family will trust in you, know that you know what's best for them. Lord, thank you again for this conversation, and help Baylor Volleyball to continue to represent you at the highest stages. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. My last question is, you mentioned that at Florida State, your head coach delegated a lot, and that helped you. We have a lot of assistant coaches and head coaches that listen to this. How important is it to have a delegating head coach? That's my question, really.
Sure. Well, I think two things is, I was a head coach for a long time and trying to figure out, and didn't even have assistants. So it took me a while to figure out how to delegate once I had those opportunities to do so. But I think one, if you are a assistant coach, this was my advice all the time when former players go on is your job is to make the head coach's job easier. Let him be the shepherd of the team. I know it's easy. You want to always just dive in a team. It's about the girls, student athletes, but I really feel if the perspective is how can I make the head coach's job easier, if he's less stressed, he's going to perform at his best. And, you lose any egos and tug of wars on what's right or wrong. Like, man, because there's going to be times you disagree, but hey, as the head coach, they wear the stress and pressure of those decisions. Moving on from that, as a head coach, again, like most certainly I can't handle everything. If you're trying to have your hand in everything, you'll be average to marginal in everything. And so I think it really is, you want to delegate to your staff's strengths for sure. And, there's a balance, and they're just, you have to have clarity on the follow-up to make sure they're doing it the way you want. You can't just say, all right, you're in charge of this and no follow-up. And then you get frustrated because it's not done the way you want. Well, where is that at? And so, there's two different styles. There's, hey, here's how I want it done, and go put your spin on it. Or there's, hey, you get it done and then bring it back to me, and I'm going to tell you how I want to adjust it. So I think kind of being clear there, some things I'm like, hey, Coach Sam, here's how I want it done. Get it done really pretty much closely this way, add a little bit of flair to it. Boom, she crushes it, knocks it out. And other things, hey, like my social media game is really weak, right? And it's like, I trust her. She's a little bit younger and in touch. Sam, you do it the best way you think. Let me just take a quick over peek. And again, she does it a bazillion times better than what I would have done on my own, spending hours and hours just trying to figure it out. you know.
And then as assistant coaches, the more times you turn in good work, the more flexibility, the more freedom you'll get too from the head coach.
More flexibility, more freedom, and it really makes your culture good. It goes back to, like, if nobody cares who gets the credit for it, it is. As a staff, we are family. It's a we. We talk about, like, hey, we got to multiply the joy, and man, we're in this thick recruiting time, and it stresses me and our recruiting coordinator a little bit more than our technical coordinator and someone else. So when we have success, it's like, yeah, let's celebrate that. And when we have these challenges, my mom with cancer or someone else losing a family member, we want to divide that burden there too. But it takes communication. I think for your athletes, we embrace adversity. And so in our staff meetings, we got to even look for it sometimes. All right, let's figure out where we see things differently. And but we're mostly able to always leave on the same page, or, with clear understanding. We just want to be heard. I think for head coaches to make sure that their assistants feel heard is a huge deal breaker. Then whatever we're out you go, maybe really doesn't matter. But if they feel heard, it goes a long ways.
Yeah. Well, Coach, thank you so much for coming on and sharing and being vulnerable, and really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me, and I hope people are encouraged, and hopefully their seasons are better than the 1-19, but their hope is in the Lord and brighter things ahead. So
yes.